Tonight, you will lie down, close your eyes, and try to fall asleep. And there is a good chance it won't work. You'll stare at the ceiling, check your phone, roll over, check it again. Maybe you'll fall asleep eventually, maybe you won't. And in the morning, you'll wake up tired and assume something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Something is wrong with what we did to the night. For 300,000 years, every human who ever lived slept completely differently than you do right now. They didn't have insomnia. They didn't need sleeping pills. They didn't lie awake at 2 a.m. wondering why their brain wouldn't stop. And then, in less than 200 years, we broke something in the human sleep system that took millions of years to build. This is the entire history of sleep. And by the end, the way you think about your own nights will never be the same. Start with what sleep actually is, because we have this wrong too. We treat sleep like a car parked in a garage. Engine off, nothing happening, just waiting for morning. That is not what sleep is. While you sleep, your brain runs a biological cleaning cycle that flushes out toxic waste proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease. Your immune system resets. Your memories from the day get filed, compressed, and connected to older memories in ways your waking brain cannot do. Your cells repair damage. Your hormones recalibrate. Sleep is not rest. Sleep is maintenance, the most complex biological maintenance process your body runs, and it is so critical that every animal on Earth does some version of it. Dolphins sleep with one half of their brain at a time so they never fully lose consciousness. Migratory birds sleep mid-flight. Even jellyfish, creatures with no brain whatsoever, have periods of reduced activity that scientists now classify as sleep. Evolution does not keep anything that doesn't work. Sleep has survived 300 million years of brutal evolutionary pressure, which means whatever it is doing something absolutely essential. So how did our ancestors do it? Not the way you do. In 2001, a historian named Roger E. Kirch published a paper that quietly rewrote everything we thought we knew about human sleep. He had spent 16 years inside archives, court records, diaries, medical texts from the 1400s, letters written by ordinary people across centuries, prayer books, even passages buried inside Homer's Odyssey. And in over 500 documents spanning 1,000 years of human history, he kept finding the same thing: first sleep and second sleep. Before the industrial age, no human on Earth slept in one continuous block the way you try every night. They went to bed shortly after sunset, slept for roughly 4 hours, then woke up naturally, stayed awake for 1 to 2 hours in the quiet middle of the night, then slept again until dawn. This was not insomnia. This was not a disorder. This was the default setting of the human sleep system for thousands of years. And what did people do during that middle hour? Everything. A 16th century French physician wrote that this was the best time for couples to conceive children. People visited neighbors. They wrote. They prayed. They interpreted the dreams they had just had while they were still fresh and vivid. A medical manual from the 1500s specifically recommended that the hours between first and second sleep were the ideal time to study, to reflect, to think clearly, because the mind was calm and the world was completely still. Historians had been reading these references for centuries, and they kept mistranslating them because they could not imagine that people had ever slept differently than they did. The assumption was so deep that scholars literally rewrote ancient Greek and medieval Latin to fit their own modern experience. Then, science caught up. In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health ran a simple experiment. He took a group of healthy volunteers and removed all artificial light from their lives. No lamps, no screens, no street lights bleeding through curtains. Just darkness from sunset to sunrise. 14 hours of darkness every night, the same amount our ancestors would have experienced before fire and candles extended the evening. He ran this for 4 weeks. Within the first week, something unexpected happened. Every single participant began waking up in the middle of the night, not randomly, not anxiously, at the same point each night, after roughly 4 hours of sleep. They stayed awake for 1 to 2 hours, then fell back asleep for another 4. Nobody told them to do this. Nobody suggested it. There was no instruction. Their bodies simply did it, as if some ancient program had been sitting dormant inside them, waiting under centuries of artificial light, and the moment the light was gone, it switched itself back on. But here is the part that changes everything. Ware measured their hormone levels during that wakeful window, and he found something he had not expected at all. The participants were not in a normal waking state. Their brains were flooded with prolactin, the same hormone released during deep meditation, the same hormone released after orgasm, a hormone almost never present during ordinary daytime wakefulness. They described the experience as peaceful, reflective, floating, unlike any other state they had ever been in. This was not a gap in sleep. This was its own distinct state of human consciousness, one that almost no modern human has a name for because we erased it before we could study it properly. For most of human history, night was a hard boundary. You did not cross it, not safely. Our eyes are nearly useless in real darkness compared to the predators that hunted us. Leopards, hyenas, wolves, all of them could see perfectly. Darkness was not peaceful for our ancestors. It was dangerous. And that danger shaped everything about how human society organized itself around the night. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu. It means cover the fire. In medieval towns, a bell rang each evening signaling everyone to extinguish or cover their flames and go inside, because night was supposed to be dark. In many medieval European cities, walking outside after dark without a lantern was not just unusual, it was illegal. Night belonged to criminals and to things people could not explain. The fear of it was woven into law, religion, and architecture. Then, piece by piece, we dismantled it. In the 1600s, cities began installing street lamps. Paris was among the first, under Louis XIV, who wanted to reduce crime. London followed. Cheaper candles arrived, then gas lamps in the 1800s. Then, on October 21, 1879, Edison held a carbon filament inside a glass bulb and kept it burning for 13.5 hours. Within a single generation, the night that humans had navigated for 300,000 years was gone. And with it went the two-sleep system, the wakeful window, the prolactin state, the reflective consciousness that no modern human has a name for, because we erased it before we could study it properly. We replaced all of it with one instruction: 8 hours uninterrupted every night. An instruction that has no precedent in the entire history of our species. Today, 1 in 3 adults in the United States does not get enough sleep. Sleep deprivation is now linked to heart disease, obesity, diabetes, depression, Alzheimer's disease, and a measurably shorter lifespan. The World Health Organization has classified nighttime shift work as a probable carcinogen, because disrupting the circadian rhythm consistently enough may contribute to cancer. And we are doing this to ourselves voluntarily every single night. Your phone screen at 10 p.m. emits blue light in the same wavelength range as midday sunlight. Your brain cannot tell the difference. When that light hits your retina, your hypothalamus receives one clear signal: it is not night. Delay melatonin. Stay alert. Your body obeys. Melatonin release gets pushed back by 2 to 3 hours. Sleep onset delays. The architecture of your sleep cycles gets compressed and distorted. The deep, slow-wave sleep you need to flush the toxic proteins from your brain gets cut short. Researchers found that people who go camping for just 1 week with zero artificial light have their melatonin cycles reset by nearly 2 full hours. Their bodies start producing melatonin at actual sunset instead of hours after it. That's all it takes, 1 week. 300,000 years of biological programming is still sitting inside you, completely intact, waiting for the conditions it was built for. Here is what nobody tells you about the insomnia epidemic. We did not discover that humans have trouble sleeping. We created the conditions that make sleep impossible and then named the damage after the people it was happening to. Waking up at 2 a.m. is not your brain malfunctioning. Lying there in the dark with your thoughts running is not a disorder.
That is your nervous system doing exactly what 300,000 years of evolution designed it to do, in a world that no longer exists. We took a sleep system that worked perfectly for the entire history of our species. We flooded it with artificial light. We compressed it into a single block. We scheduled it around work, not around the sun. We gave it caffeine in the morning to force it awake, and alcohol at night to force it down. And then we wondered why it was broken. The fix is not a pill. The fix is understanding what you actually are, an animal with an ancient nervous system, dropped without warning into a world built in the last 200 years, trying to run software that was written for a completely different environment. Your ancestors did not fear the night, they used it. The question is whether you still can.